Your thing for France. Okay, good. And Adams didn't ask for a declaration of war. The Constitution says only Congress can declare war. But remember, Washington didn't ask for a declaration of war before the Battle of Fallen Timbers, the Treaty of Greenville. So Congress has already kind of allowed the president to do this, violating the Constitution. But now the Republicans are furious. How dare you go to war without a declaration of war? So this is supposed to be the many-headed monster of revolutionary France. These are X, Y, and Z. And here's the decadence of the French Revolution. They're playing poker, I know. And this represents Haiti. There was a slave rebellion in Haiti against French rule for liberty. And so this is saying this is a bad thing. And look how they draw Lady Columbia, Lady Liberty. You notice the way she looks? And then what is she operating? Speaking of guillotine, as I told you, Marie Antoinette and Louis XIV were beheaded, along with thousands of others. So it's now a very appropriate time for me to use the Marie Antoinette doll. The Queen of France, what happened to her? Oh, you know what else? Yep, so. Yeah. She wore really big wigs, sometimes like with a table on it. She put whole like boats on her head. Hey, that was stop. That's the way it was when I was a kid. Always ring the bell when you use the Marie Antoinette doll. So at that, the U.S. had no Navy, and the Army was just created. So they created a new department of the Navy, and that means more excise taxes. So they raised taxes, and what that meant was now more taxes on farmers, prices would go up with a tariff. Republicans were furious. And these are some of the new ships they built. This is the Constitution. That's the Constellation. They're not ships of the line. They're not the big battleships, but they're fast. They're actually really effective frigates, small cruising vessels to patrol, but they weren't the big battleships. We never did build those. We wouldn't, the United States Navy would not have those until 1850s. We'll come back to this. And, well, almost forgot. So Republicans are furious. They're criticizing the Federalists. How dare you do this? Now they're acting like tyrants and acting like kings. At the same time, there are a lot of immigrants coming over to the United States, and Federalists were worried they're all going to become Republicans. And so they're going to pass a series of 3 laws that we lump together as the Alien and Sedition Acts. The first one says new immigrants, aliens, when they come to the United States, originally it was 5 years they become a citizen, they turned it to 14 because they thought all the new aliens would be Republicans. Next, dangerous aliens. There's no dictionary yet, so that's how the law reads, dangerous. We're still 14 years, 12 years from the dictionary. Dangerous aliens like Citizen Kane can be deported. And lastly, it said we're at war. Criticism of the government at war, even though there's no declaration, helps the enemy. So therefore, it bans sedition. No criticism of the government. And remember, Congress passes these. President Adams didn't like these 3 laws, but he thought they were constitutional, so he signed them. By signing them, it kind of became his law, because who enforces the law? Yeah, so it goes to him. Even though there's no real police force, so states would enforce it. And then define criticism of the government. Here's a better question. Who defines criticism of the government? And so, first off, alien, just so you know, this means somebody who's not a citizen from outer space. Calling somebody from outer space an alien, which we all know we're surrounded by aliens, most of them are reptilians, right? We understand that, correct? We know about the reptoid threat to society, but yes. What reptoids want. But Aliens would start being used for like people from flying saucers or something after the Great Flying Saucer Scare of 1947. There was the Flying Saucer Scare of 1947.
You remember?
Vividly, I was in my 40s. I remember that. So with that, so to speak. So with that, sedition. So the first thing is, does this seem to go against the Constitution? Specifically, what amendment? But remember, the first said government cannot pass a law. But it didn't say you have freedom of speech. So it's saying sedition is not freedom of speech. So it is unclear. And how do you decide constitutionality? It doesn't say that in the Constitution. Remember I mentioned judicial review? Well, the Supreme Court is going to give themselves that power 7 years after this. And even then, most people would not follow it. So it's unclear. And secondly, who is the target of this? Who did this law target? Did it target the French because we're at war with the French? Now, who did it target? Say it again. What people? Not all people. Republicans. It's targeting Republicans. Because Republicans, how do you run for office if you can't criticize the person you're running against? I don't think I think they're going in the wrong direction. I think I can do a better job. This is the 5 reasons why they're doing a poor job, and elect me as dictator of the world. But are you going to vote for me? Be relatively benevolent as dictator of the world. It targeted Republicans. It shut up criticism. Because if you're not really sure what will get you arrested, you just keep your mouth shut. And there's something else. If we are at quasi-war with France, that implies we're kind of at war with what country? We didn't declare war on it. Say it again. With Britain. We're kind of at war with Britain now. Because Britain is fighting the French. Did you say it or did you? Oh, but good job. Sorry. And so with that, yes.
If Britain was at war with France,
Mhm.
why, by declaring war on France, we also declare war on?
We didn't declare war, but since we're helping Britain's enemy, we're kind of joining them. Yeah, did I say that wrong?
How are we joining? No, you said it for.
Did I say we're at war with Britain? No. Oh, God, I missed one. Everyone back, act like these last 2 minutes never happened. By joining the French, we're indirectly helping the British, is what I mean. Yeah, by fighting the Austria. All right, just reset.
He's like, he's contemplating life right now.
Let me tell you a story. By fighting the French, we're joining the British. Does that make sense to everybody now? It's one of the problems when I'm in front, I'm thinking about, okay, I gotta do this, gotta have this, I gotta do that, and I forget what I'm doing. So sorry about that. So with that, almost immediately, Jefferson and Madison, the vice president's periods. Jefferson would personally write what's called the Kentucky resolutions for the Kentucky legislature. So Kentucky, their legislature made a vote, a resolution. It's not binding law, but they wrote it. Virginia was written by Madison. Here is a handbill of the one from Kentucky. And it said, all right, the Alien and Sedition Acts are unconstitutional. So states must have the power to nullify or not obey unconstitutional laws. Because no one else is doing it. So they're saying it's unconstitutional. Of course, Adams thought it was constitutional. And if you don't, or if the federal government tries to force the state, then they leave the union. What is leaving the union? That's secession or secede. And everybody knows secession is civil war. There's no way the United States can allow a state to leave. Because if that state leaves, what's going to happen the next time there's something controversial?
Another state.
Another state, and the whole thing falls apart. And as we can see, you're gonna talk about the Virginia Kentucky resolution. Ian's kind of an expert on this.
No.
All right, see you six. Good answer, though. And so with that, now, fortunately, before they could go to that step, the war ended. But down the road, can you imagine certain people taking what Jefferson and Madison said and then applying it to different situations? Like opposition to the War of 1812, or let me throw one out, I'll just throw one out. To protect slavery and especially slavery in the territories. Thus, here it is, Kentucky and Virginia resolutions and states' rights, which was code for protection of slavery. And this is the nullification crisis of 1833, about this that nearly destroyed the Union. So this sets a bad precedent. Do you get my point there? Fortunately, there was a peace conference in 1800, and even though it didn't solve all the problems, there would be somewhat peace. But the Alien and Sedition Act is just going to hang over Adams. Because now we have the age of Jefferson. Pretty neat, huh? If you get a chance. If you haven't been there, the Jefferson Memorial is really cool. I like the new ones. Here's Jefferson Memorial. The Washington Memorial will be right about here. Lincoln over here. FDR Memorial is here. There's a really good hot dog stand right here. And when I was there, the woman was just in awe that I was from Montana. How can you get from Montana to here? Yeah, I know that's. And people say, no, people do ask you that. Yes. Go. All right. But next time, bring a bottle of water. You have to do that. Okay. Huh? They just assume we live in a. Yeah, we have all the problems with the regional airport, yeah. It's cheaper to fly from Los Angeles to New York than to fly from Helena to Denver. We'll get to it. It's called monopolies. That guy did that? That sounded pretty good. Wouldn't it be cool if I had a make it?
Yeah.
I'm already loud enough. And you've never heard me yell. Maybe a little bit. Oh, we are set.
They came to the band, MSU did, and they use the MSU plastic mic.
MSU.
You can, if you don't like it.
That's still pretty cool. Ah,
They didn't yell assassin.
that's a valid point. This could have been a shiv. You know what a shiv is?
Yeah.
Yes.
You haven't spent hard time. Try it again. Go out, walk back in. What do you have to? Thank you. That was lame.
You never told us to do that.
I haven't told you guys to do that?
I did this last year's class record, and they always did that.
All right, here we go. Try it again. Now, I wasn't clear in this class. Wait a sec. Just wait. Now, I'm not paranoid, but everybody's out to get me. It's true, right? You know that. So you have to warn me if someone's coming in. It could just be a pass, could be a test. It could be a knife. Thank you. Now, what if it's an administrator? What do we do? No, we yell assassins and hide under the desk. So you can play Mr. Santo. Okay. Now, ready? Come in. Under your desk. It wasn't bad, but now we're in trouble. Thank you. Done well.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote it now.
Pen is easier to write. Wow, that was a good use of our time. Moving on. The best part is we filmed that. All right, so here we go. Election of 1800. And both sides said our country would be destroyed if the other side wins. The Federalists said the Republicans are dangerous radicals, are going to win the French Revolution, and the revolution is over. The Republicans and the Federalists are going to be dictators or bring back the monarchy. And so this is Jefferson and Adams. and these creepy flags. This is a creepy one for Jefferson, and I'm not even sure what that is, but that's Adams. And you can't see it as much with Jefferson, but you really see with Adams. Remember what I told you about portrait painters at that time?
It's like either an adult woman's face on a little boy's body or like a young person's face on a woman's face.
Yeah, usually an elderly woman or, yeah. And so this is the thing, they're trying to soften the features and make them look better. So that's one of the things, if you look at this, I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? You have goldfish?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. This was on the call.
Can you say the cauldron?
Because I said you like twice, yeah, not again. Or I get a phone, I don't want phones. But have you ever skipped a phone down the hallway? Oh, I tell you what, they'll get 5 or 6 good skip. Can I help you? Oh, that was kind of lame. To be a shim. See, that's, if you spend hard time, you know how to make, you have to do it. You would.
Do you have personal experience?
I've been around people. So they're trying to make them look better. Now, I would argue they don't necessarily look better, but don't forget this whenever you see portraits. So now it's a perfect time to show you a picture. And I want you to imagine the portrait painter was trying to make them look better. And there's nobody that works better than a couple Habsburg monarchs. So Charles V, I want you to think about one thing really quickly. Imagine what his chin really looked like. And poor Philip IV, his jaw was so badly deformed that he couldn't chew food, and he could hardly talk.
Awful. I didn't, was the royal family tree just the column back then?
What's what?
Well,
Family tree alone.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. Yeah, this is why inbreeding bad. Do not marry your cousin, all right? Don't be Rudy Giuliani. Okay, so Jefferson would win this very contested election, but there was his vice presidential running mate, Aaron Burr. Now remember, each presidential candidate had 2 votes. But what they decided was this. Okay, we have 2 votes. And then the majority of electors, whoever has the majority of electors. But each elector has 2 votes. So all of the Federalist electors decided they would vote for Adams. All but one said they would vote for Charles Pinckney as vice president, and then one would vote for Jay. So there wouldn't be a tie. Does that make sense? The Republican electors forgot which one was not supposed to vote for Aaron Burr, who was the vice presidential nominee. So they all voted for Burr and Jefferson. Therefore, nobody has the majority. And Burr was the governor of New York. Jefferson needed New York to win the election. And Burr, very intelligent, a war hero. He believed in a lot of the Republican ideals, but at the same time, he was incredibly ambitious. He made a lot of enemies. He's kind of a scoundrel, too. So this was a compromise choice. Now, obviously, the electors wanted Jefferson, and it should be Jefferson. You're right. Obviously, Burr should have said Jefferson be president. But Burr kind of thought, I kind of want to be president. And so he didn't pull up. Instead, it goes to the House of Representatives. Now, this is where Madison thought all elections would go, as it turned out, not after this one especially. We've only had one other election go to the House, 1824. So each state gets 1 vote. So regardless of how many members of the House, they will vote, and then whoever wins that vote of the members from, let's say, New York, then New York gets their vote. Federalists at first are like, yes, what a great way to get Jefferson and the Republicans. We can humiliate Jefferson, destroy the Republicans by picking Burr. They will be divided and destroy the party. Of course, it also could destroy this brand new country. And a lot of them were saying, yeah, roll the die, let's do it. But a few Federalists realized how dangerous this would be, including Alexander Hamilton, who didn't like Jefferson, but despised Burr. for New York. Jefferson, he had an extramarital affair that came out, and he partially blamed Burr for some of the bad publicity after this became public, especially the money Hamilton spent to cover it up.
Jefferson on the affair.
Hamilton, did I say Jefferson? I meant Hamilton on the affair. We'll get to Jefferson. And so Jefferson won. And so that is the first constitutional crisis. The 12th Amendment would be ratified to change it to one vote for president, one vote for vice president. So they wouldn't have this problem again, except now the Electoral College is here to stay. That's why you think, why do we have the Electoral College when you have situations where the majority of the people want somebody else to be president? It's because of that 12th Amendment here. It just kind of kept it. And most of the time, up until recently, it kind of worked. Not perfect, it's flawed, but that's why we don't have a national election for president. Remember, we have individual elections in every state for the electors in that state. Yes. Well, most of the time, the person who was elected president had a more popular vote. That's what it's about. But as I said, not perfectly and flawed, but it seemed to pick the person that most people wanted. But 2 times in the last 5 elections, that hasn't happened. So it's breaking down. So that also slave power. What compromise of the Constitution was slave power? Yeah, that 3/5 compromise. That gave more population for the slave states that had more slaves. Therefore, more members of the House and therefore more electors. If they only counted 3 people as citizens. Now, I know how horrific to not count everybody who was there, but I'm just only 3 people as citizens. The vote in the Electoral College, because it would have reduced the number of representatives here, would have been 65 to 63, and Adams would have been elected president. And who knows how history would have been different. And so you can imagine how Northerners especially would talk about slave power. So as the United States grew, the biggest issue that would divide the country, and do write this down, slavery in the territories. Because we start moving into here. New territories, if they have slavery, means more slave power. That became the biggest issue for the next 60 years. Probably the #1 issue that led to Civil War. Yes, slavery was the underlying cause, but slavery in the territories. And because he was a slave owner, Northerners started referring to Jefferson as the Negro President. And they mocked this great philosopher who wrote the Declaration of Independence as nothing but a slave herder. So here he is as like a rooster with chickens, and as a philosopher, that's why it says the philosophic cock. And here he has and they drew the chickens as slaves. And they always drew it cartoons at this time. It's a quirk, it makes no sense. Everybody from Africa, they put in a turban. Even though sub-Saharan Africa, I know that makes no sense, but that's what they did, yeah.
So Jefferson knew that slavery.
Not abolish, but have these areas without slave codes. Oh, yeah, just slave. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I just wasn't sure if he was like. No. What was this?
Let's put it this way. Every slave owner is horrific to the slave. There's just different degrees of horrific. Yes,
What was this justification?
for what?
Nothing.
Well, they
For like abolishing.
yeah, you're exact, and the answer is yes.
Okay.
So in 1804, this will come up in 1804 because this has been whispered about Jefferson for over a decade before this election. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Did I give you I gave everyone the review list, right?
Yeah.
It won't be the whole review list. I'll cut it off wherever we stop and the test will be on Wednesday. Sound good? All right, see ya. And 1804, it became public. It was whispered before. It's like, we all know what's going on. And you know this was going on in slave quarters. After Jefferson's wife died, her slave started having redheaded children. Her personal slave was named Sally Heming. So when she died, Jefferson owned her. Do you get the gist of what I just said? And this became very public. And this is going to talk about that hypocrisy. If here's Jefferson fighting for freedom and liberty. And they actually, this is from 1804, Virginian luxuries, and it's mocking the plantation owners, indirectly mocking Jefferson. So here's the owner, and here's the owner beating the slave. That's what slavery is. So they knew then. And the weird thing about Jefferson's, about Sally Hemings, Sally Hemings' father was Jefferson's father-in-law.
Wait, so she was a slave to her sister?
Yes, her half sister. Remember the fornication laws? Yeah, Jefferson's wife's father was the father of Sally Hemings too. Remember the fornication laws, everybody? Yeah. Isn't that just, it tells you everything you need to know about what's, or so many things combined with, and then we'll beat your children. Did Jefferson ever free his children, by the way? He had many redheaded children, yeah. Did he free them? Of course not. Yes. Well, it's not an affair. You know, this is not like a love affair where they come together. Oh, let's meet. No, this is one person owned the other. But I know what you mean. I want to be clear. This is not an affair. This is something horrifically dark and sinister. Yes, if we know for fact. In fact, we know the descendants of Sally Heming, and yes, they have DNA that matches Jefferson. So we know this for a fact. So, but we're still in the age of Jefferson. So let's get to the Jefferson called this the revolution of 1800, but in reality, it wasn't a real revolution. It's not like it changed everything. Was it about the exam, by the way? Huh? Okay, so the revolution, and Jefferson tried to portray himself as a common man. He would ride around the brand new city of Washington, D.C. with torn breeches. That's supposed to be him. But it also shows how Jefferson's philosophy is not quite what we think. So we got to get to this. By the way, this makes a great short ID on the test. This is what we call a hint. You like that? So Jefferson's philosophy. Oh, almost forgot that. I was kind of in a hurry. Everyone thought it'd be a revolution. They didn't really change a lot of what the Federalists did. The revolution was a peaceful transference of power. They could actually transfer power to a different view and survive. But let's get to this. Jefferson believed in the common man. Now, the common man, that's not average. What that means is not of aristocratic birth. What Jefferson was opposed to was for the future of the United States, where people's wealth, status, class, power will be decided upon luck of birth, who their parents were. Not in the new America, it should be based upon everybody should have a chance, based upon what you do as an adult, based upon your merit. Now, this is already kind of an illusion, because how did Jefferson get his wealth? The old-fashioned way. He inherited it. So, not for him. And this is where we get the idea of Jeffersonian democracy, where the common man, the people, as he said, but we're saying the common man, will have the power, sovereign. And when we said Jefferson, what kind of man? He's non-aristocratic, but what else? White men. White men. Now, this obviously is not counting most people. And so you can say, wow, that's incredible. They're still skipping so many. And yet, we still can't diminish the fact that this is still quite, to most people, quite radical. So it's one of those, it's a too slow of a step up, but it is a step up. If you believe in democracy. If you do not believe in democracy, then you would say, no, this is a step down. Yes.
But there was still a law that slaves would be slaves determined.
Did you see all the contradictions in this? Yeah, you just pointed out a big contradiction, didn't you? But let's look at this real quick for the bell ring. That's his home in Monticello. And he wanted to portray a common man. But this hid the illusion of the whole thing. He expected the common man to vote for people like him. How many stories are in his home in Monticello? Which, by the way, you notice in Dome, he loved classical art. Doesn't it look like 2?
Isn't it like 6?
Yeah, it's 5.
Yes, there are a lot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a floor right here. The door is huge. So from a distance, it looks like one floor because you can see one door. You get closer and the door, the handle is like right here on the bottom of the door. The windows are massive. This shows the illusion of this. He says he wants the common man, and yet he's not a common man. He was born to great wealth with hundreds of slaves. And on that happy note, if you have to review this, please start going through it. And
Go girls.
look at this. Here, honest. You've got documents. If you think I'm pretty good. Like it. You like it.
Yeah, I liked it. I don't know, I guess not. Because okay, so it's that break.
If you think you're going to sounds a little bit. So you can kind of. Think of it. You feel like the way- Here's the thing. This is good. This is great. Lord, the sun. I really think oh. Not my born room. If I have to be here all day, who asked me to adjust? How'd you pay it from 1 to 10? One to 10. Oh. So I gotta have a review list for the next test. We gotta have a test next week by Wednesday. I was thinking a little bit later, but we got that 4-day week. Wow. 4 days. You have a 4 day. Trust me, easier if we didn't have that quiz. Here we go. Here's the review list. Are there any questions for the quiz? Only 10 questions. It is very. I did quite well. I got 110%. I always give a little bit extra. I give 110%. Where are you gonna be? Oh, take a break. While we're here working, you. What's your mind? Oh, you will take the test.
Isn't Wednesday the assembly schedule? Isn't there like an evacuation thing? We're going to the fairgrounds on next Wednesday. And then,
You're kidding.
no, and I think, club photos are on Wednesday too. Yeah, that's true.
Talk about
Club
club photos.
at least.
We're just all gonna go and get into every photo. We just all join for every club. We're gonna join today. I'm gonna ask somebody.
Is this?
No, that's close.
No.
What am I doing? Give me 1 second. Well, I'll count out the quiz. Gotta do the review list. The test.
That's what Norman's.
He knows everything.
Yeah.
No questions? Let's do it. Give me 1 sec. Oh, you got 30 seconds. You put like a little notation for the letter. Do your answers on this. You need a Vietnam War quiz. Pass this. Would you like a bonus question? Put it by your name. What was so unusual about Jefferson becoming Adams' vice president? So unusual about that. Oh. Still recording from last period.